Earlier, I said I would talk about Fridays later, so let me tell you about a typical Friday for me before I made a deal with those bikers. I will continue the story I started soon, don't you worry. I just wanted to give you an idea of how my life looked before I was corrupted by a group of good-looking and way too obnoxious bikers. Fridays had always been special for me ever since I entered high school because it was the one day of the week I was free of every supervision. The second I left the house in the morning to go to school, I was free until Saturday evening when I would return home from my music classes. I know some schools have activities and classes on Saturdays, but until now I had always managed to avoid such a cruel fate, and thus gained my one day of freedom. My parents agreed to let me sleep over at P-Par's place Friday nights, since they'd met him before and found him responsible enough, and because it was easier and more convenient for me. Meaning, every Friday night, I was free to do whatever I wanted after we finished the gig. And you can believe me, that's exactly what I did. I was a small loser with big glasses, yes. But when I was at the pub, I had 5 older siblings with me, forcing me to enjoy myself. Every Friday, our band would be the last live music headliner before the pub changed to song requests and electronic music, to open up more space on the floor for tables where normally the band would set up. We would perform from around midnight to 1 in the morning, and after, I was kidnapped by my seniors without any protest. Being accepted and taken to the bar area to get drinks, talk to fans, and be their little mascot. With an arm constantly around my shoulder by either one of the band members or one of my other friends if they were there, I was well protected in the chaotic club. The first time I went after I finally got my freedom, I got myself so drunk, I didn't even remember half of the night. So after what happened that night, I wasn't allowed to drink without supervision. Not that it would stop me from having a good time, since having supervision also meant having someone to pay for my drinks. I'm sure that by now, I drink more than I did that first night. I just space it out better and developed a bit of a tolerance. I don't flirt with girls or guys for that matter, so I spent my time dancing, joking with my friends, or playing wingman for one of my seniors. I've always been more on the cute side, so with me around, girls would feel safer and they would be easier to approach. Imagine you see a guy in the park and he had a cute puppy with him. He right away feels easier to approach, right? Or in the club, you're dancing with your friends and you meet a gay guy and his friend. You would feel less worried towards the gay boy and thus give his best friend more of a chance because seeing him with a gay guy puts you at ease. I was that puppy or gay friend for those girls. Not that I am gay, I just had the vibe of someone you don't have to be on guard around. Well, this also resulted in no girl actually showing interest in me since I was just cute and fun and a little dorky and easily forgotten. But at that time, I didn't care much about it. All of my Friday nights were like that until a deal changed it. At first, it wasn't much different. I was playing the drums, then P-Mini and P-Par possessively put their arms over me, quickly leading me to the bar, making it impossible for me to slip away. With a smile, I leaned over the bar to blow the bartender a short kiss. After playing here for nearly 2 years now, I was close with him and his boyfriend. They both worked the Friday shift. First him, and his boyfriend taking over after 2, or jumping in if it got too full early on. The two were really not at all what you'd expect from a bartender. They were manly to the point of making you uncomfortable if you didn't know them. Rough around the edges, and always ready to fight if anything wasn't right. But they were also protective of female customers, and really good at their jobs. That was why, even though at first sight you really distrusted them, after ordering your first drink, you would definitely put your trust in them. They were, together with the main bouncer and the owner, the reason why, even though it was a Friday night, the place was filled with way more girls than boys. Soon after, I got my drink, leisurely sipping it, while this time, P-Par took care of the bill. Next round would probably be on P-Mini, and after that, someone else would take over. Hey, I'm not leeching off of them. They always offer to pay, especially my male seniors, because Let's be honest, I helped all of them to land at least a few girls already. And the tipsier I got, the better a wingman I was. So they paid for my drinks for their own advantage. The change only happened after my third drink. Up until now, it had been a rather normal Friday, but not any longer. It started with an arm around my shoulders that I didn't know. I was sitting with a group of girls that invited me and P. Minnie to drink with them, since they enjoyed the performance and they all wanted to pet P. Minnie's puppy. Yes, that puppy was me. Looking up confused, I realized that one of the biker gang members had his arm around my shoulder, making P. Minnie look dark and angry. Quickly giving her an assuring smile to calm her down, I turned to the guy. "Oh, P, why did you come over?" I asked him with a sheepish grin. You can bet the alcohol was making me feel a lot braver. "I just came over to invite you for a drink, but I can see you're busy. Why don't you introduce me?" he said, smiling brightly at the girls. Like I said, those guys weren't ugly or anything, so alcohol and his looks worked in his favor, having the girls smile at him with googly eyes. "Oh, of course, I'm sorry. Ladies, this is P7. He's a senior at my school," I introduced him. P7 was the least good-looking out of the guys and the number 3 in my school. Above him were only Mr. Biker magazine model and his other friend. The two friends they brought along from another school were both better looking than P7, but since they weren't attending my school, he got to steal third place. P7 quickly found his way into the conversation, and that's when those bikers finally found a good use for me. I was, as I said, a good wingman. Especially since the only wingman they knew up until now was good looking and always taking the best for himself, leaving them with the rest. And with that, I had a few more people paying for my drinks, but compared to my music school seniors, I didn't feel safe or comfortable around them. I played along and introduced them to whomever I was talking to when their arms appeared around my shoulders, but at the same time, I always did my best to quietly slip away as soon as I got the chance. With a sigh, I finally got a few minutes to myself, sitting at the bar sipping my drink. Soon enough, P. Gone, the other bartender, not the one I greeted in the beginning since it was late and they had changed shifts, approached me, leaning against the counter while looking at me. "How's it going, you? I hear you got some friends with you today?" His question was in no way invasive, or even deeply inquisitive, but from the tone in his voice, I could tell that he wanted to ask something else, and even what the question was. So I gave him an assuring smile, shaking my head. "Don't get me started. They're seniors from my school and they're friends. I got myself into a deal with them, so I have to bring them along. But it's okay. They're not here to make trouble. Just exhausting to keep up with." I made sure that even though it was a complaint, it didn't sound like I was in trouble, and P. Gone nodded. "That's good then. Here, drink some water." And with putting down a glass of water, he left to the other side of the bar to have an eye on a girl that got herself too drunk. It was surrounded by some guys trying to use the situation to their advantage. I watched them for a bit, smiling when I saw P. Gone prancing in front of the guys, making sure they would leave the girl alone. P. Gone had all of the characteristics of an alpha male, and a really impressive one at that, so his actions quickly scared the other guys away. Turning my head to the other side of the bar, I saw exactly what I expected. Unable to hide my smile, I shook my head at P. Gone's husband. He was sitting on the chair looking all relaxed on the outside, but I knew him long enough to know that he was ready to jump over the bar the second anyone would start trouble with his wife. The man I was laughing about looked up, and his eyes met mine, the smile still on my face. I gave him a nod. I stood up, and he calmed down. Walking around the bar, I stopped in front of P. Gone and the girl. "Want me to look for her friends so they can take her home?" I offered. Taking drunk girls home isn't as fun as it sounds, believe me. And I didn't even take them home. I just got them a taxi out front and went back inside. But I owed the two bartenders as much, since they were always the first to take care of me, and make sure I was okay. And let's be honest, I was probably the least threatening person in this whole place. So the girls would trust me enough to actually come with me when I took them to get their friends and their stuff and send them home by taxi. Even though we're human, we still have instincts. So since I wasn't interested in those girls, they trusted me. Not that I didn't find them pretty or attractive, I just didn't think of myself as good enough to make a move on them. And let's be honest, I was a total virgin, and really didn't want my first time to be with some dead drunk girl. Not that I had any big romantic thoughts about my first time or anything, I just wanted two things. The person taking my virginity to be actually attracted to me, and for it to happen while both parties were sober. That's nothing special, right? I was never one for big romantic moments, so, all honesty, I wouldn't even mind if my first time was just a one-night thing if it fits with the criteria. Oh, and I really didn't want the other party to know it was my first time. But that's not important right now, so let's get back to that later when it actually plays a role. As you can see, I really was the smallest threat in the room. With a big yawn, I turned back when the taxi left just to be met with a stern look. You really are such a gentleman. The words were nice, but the voice saying it was clearly mocking me. Oh, you really think so? I asked back. No need to be polite with this guy. Yes, that was the alcohol talking, but hey, don't blame me. He started it. The boy just stopped shaking his head. Definitely. Why else would you send a girl like that home by herself? He was leaning against the wall, looking even more like a model. He was really annoying me. Like, honestly, did this guy think his whole life was a photo shoot, or was he just born to always look like he was posing for pictures? Again, shaking my head, I just shrugged, not giving him a reply as I walked by to get back inside. As I walked past him, suddenly the world started spinning, and soon my back hit the wall and my vision blurred since I lost my glasses. What? I can't see. My glasses. Moving my hands around like a blind man, I was trying to feel where I was and what happened, squinting my eyes to be able to see. Until finally, everything started to become clear again when my glasses were put on my nose. You really are blind without those. I again heard that annoyingly mocking voice, and this time, I even saw the face going with that tone. I was standing with my back against the wall, and he was in front of me, one hand putting my glasses on my nose, the other keeping me in place, pressing against my shoulder. The movement had sobered me up enough to feel fear and to hunch over, trying to avoid those eyes. Are you really such a gentleman, or are you just not interested in those girls? He asked, making me blink at him in confusion, until finally my brain remembered how to think through the fear, and I realized what he meant. I just don't think I have the right to make a move. I stated the first thing coming to my mind, but apparently that was answer enough, since I was let go, and he walked back inside. Until today, I have no idea why my answer made him let go of me, and I never asked him. But since I know him better now, I can guess. So this is my best guess. Back then, they had only seen me with my music school seniors, the slightly more confident side of me. So seeing me send home girls like that, he probably wondered why, assuming I was gay or just really stupid. Hearing an answer that didn't match with any he had waited for in his drunk state made him confused enough to just let it go. Like I said, just my guess, but it would make sense. The rest of the night went by without much trouble, and it was nearly 5 in the morning when I finally fell face first on Peepar's couch. You, go shower, hurry. An annoying Peepar hit the couch with his foot, making me get up and go shower so he could shower after me and finally go to sleep. P, just shower first, I'll go after you, I complained, rolling into a ball on the couch. No, you, go shower or you'll fall asleep right here and not wake up, and then tomorrow you're gonna have a rash again, he said again, hitting the couch with his foot. and this time even hitting me on the shoulder to get me moving. Grumpy and complaining, I got up and made my way to the bathroom. A quick shower and one change of clothes later, I was finally rolling myself in P-Par's blanket, falling asleep. The next weeks went by like always. Music classes during the day, and then hanging out with friends or going to the pub for a gig depending on the day of the week. My Fridays started to be more chaotic, and I started to get to know those biker guys more and more. Not in an all-pleasant way, but I finally started to not shrug away every time they came close to me, or try to run away when I saw them hang out in front of the music school. I didn't have much to do with them besides on Wednesdays and Fridays. Wednesdays was easier though, since the gig was earlier and I still had to keep my promise to my parents to come home soon after the gig. Since it was the holidays, they weren't as strict about it, but they are my parents. I took the bikers into the club, played my gig quietly, and had a drink or two before P. Minnie would take me home. That was until the second week. I had just finished performing and went to the bar with P. Minnie. It was Wednesday, so the place wasn't full, and I only wanted to have a few drinks to salute with my bandmates before leaving early. But today, something wasn't right. At first, I really didn't know what it was. I just felt like some shudder running down my spine. It wasn't until a little later that evening I realized why I had been feeling that way. I was actually getting some air outside when some old man approached me with a weird look. I ignored him, hoping that he would just move on, but apparently, I thought wrong. "Hey, young boy." His voice was sleazy and gave me the urge to douse myself in cleaning products. Ugh. I normally don't want to talk bad about people that I don't know, but he was just the type of person you feel revolted to be around right off the bat. So I turned away, wanting to walk back inside, when the man grabbed my hand. "Hey, where are you going? Let's talk for a bit." He held my arm tightly, and I wasn't strong enough to pull away. Rolling my shoulders, I hunched my back and protectively crossed one arm over my body, holding on to the one the man was holding. "Please let me go." My voice was sounding weak, and my strength wasn't enough to pull my arm away from him. He just kept smiling with that sleazy look, coming closer. "Don't be scared. I really just want to talk to you. You see, I've been watching you all night." And that's where that uneasy feeling came from. Now, it made sense. Taking a deep breath, I took all the strength I had and used the trick P. Moan taught me to break free at the weakest link, pulling my arm out of his grip. "I'm sorry, my friends are waiting for me," I quickly mumbled, walking back inside. After that, for me, it was over. I didn't even want to think about it, and since nothing happened, I pushed the thoughts to the darkest part of my brain to not think about them again. Things like that don't normally happen. Maybe every once in a blue moon, especially to people like me. So I didn't give it much attention and walked over to P. Minnie. She was talking to a guy I didn't know, seeming in a deep conversation about something, and I wasn't stupid. I could see that she was interested in him, and he in her. So, deciding not to interrupt, I instead sat at the bar. And as you all thought, what happened before wasn't over. With a sigh, I put my head on my hand, watching the room. It was interesting to watch people, see how they behave and who was interested in who. Smiling, I saw P-Par with a group of fans, laughing in amusement, when suddenly a drink was placed in front of me. I didn't order anything," I said to the bartender, looking confused. He shrugged, nodding his head to the other side of the bar. "Well, someone ordered that for you." Take a guess who that was. That old man. With a shudder, I pushed the drink away. "Take it back, please. I don't think that's safe to drink." I turned my back to the bar and the man, ignoring the drink. I didn't think that old man would drug me, but accepting the drink would be seen as a green light, and I wasn't strong enough to drink that and still get away from the man, so I ignored the drink. I mean, I'm not attractive, so he should give up soon enough when he found someone else to bother, right? Yep, you said it. Wrong. A big, disgusting, sweaty arm around my shoulder was proof of that. Trying to hide the shudder, I quickly stepped away, taking all the bravery I had thanks to alcohol, and turned to face him. Please leave me alone. I clearly rejected all of your advances, and I'm not interested or playing games. Those guys over there, they're my friends, and I hope I don't have to get them involved. The last sentence I said looking over to the table where the biker gang was sitting, enjoying their time. I wasn't sure if I would even be able to get their help, or if they would pay attention to me if I tried. But I just hoped bringing them into the conversation would be enough to get the old man to back off. And it worked. At least I thought so, since he turned to the group of guys, then back to me, and turned around leaving. With a deep sigh of relief, I turned to look at P. Minnie to see if she was ready to leave yet or not. Seeing her still in a conversation, I waited to finally catch her eyes, nodding towards the back, then the door to tell her that I would get my stuff and wait for her near the door since it was getting late, and I really didn't want to get in trouble with my parents. They were already soft enough on me. I didn't have many rules to follow or limits, so I didn't want to push the few that I had. I knew my parents could be a lot stricter if I danced out of line too many times, making me rather good at keeping the few rules I had to follow. The back of the pub, where the stuff room and the room with the band equipment and my bag was, really had only one sparsely lit corridor and 2 doors. I stood in said corridor with my hand on the door to the equipment room when suddenly someone grabbed my hand. Again, I felt the feeling of disgust and fear wash over me. With my body trembling, I looked around to see if anyone was there, but it was just me and that old man. I'm sure you won't need to get your friends involved if we talk here, he said with the same sleazy voice, making my brain go blank. I was scared out of my mind. My body froze, unable to move. My voice was stuck. I couldn't even scream or talk. All I could do was shake my head, over and over, while I felt him pushing me against the wall, his dirty, disgusting hands rubbing over my body, slipping under my shirt when... "What are you doing with that boy?" a voice asked. It was trembling too, but with anger, not with fear. None of your business. Get lost, the man said, only making the other even angrier. That's my friend you're touching, so I'm sure I do have a say in that, he growled, stepping closer. Since he's only your friend, you shouldn't mind. He was begging for it. My mind was screaming at me to say no, to push the man away, but I couldn't. I was still frozen in fear, still unable to fight back, only hoping the boy that stopped the man would be able to help me. Oh, did he now? The sarcasm was thick enough to walk on in that one sentence. I'm sure my friend didn't beg you, so get your dirty hands off him. With that, the man was forcefully pushed aside, and someone pulled me into a hug, making sure I didn't see what happened next. All I know is that after, the man left, and I never asked about it again. Looking up, my eyes widened in surprise. The one protecting me was P. Win. He was the biker who was in charge of driving me around the few times I actually ended up riding with those boys. Thank you, I said in a soft voice. He looked down, letting me go and giving me a smile. Hey, no problem. With that, I thought it was over, but instead, P. Win stayed with me while I got my stuff, and even escorted me back inside the main room. I wanted to walk over to the bar to wait for P. Minnie, but with a soft push against my shoulder, P. Win guided me to their table instead. I sat there a little bit awkward as P. Win explained what happened and even pointed out the man since he was still there sitting at the bar. You could see the anger in their eyes as P. Win finished his story. I didn't really understand why they were so angry about it since the situation was dissolved and everything was good now, but I soon would realize that for them, it wasn't, and the reason why. When I spotted P. Mini, I got up to leave, but was met with 5 guys standing up too. "We'll escort you outside," Mr. Leader proclaimed, not leaving any room for protest. And I was definitely not going to go up against that guy. Like, ever. So, without any protest from me, I was escorted outside by 5 guys. P. Mini was already gone to get the car, leaving it to me to wait for her at the front door. Standing there with no bad thoughts in my mind, I suddenly felt something change. I wasn't a predator like those guys were, so my instincts were run when all of them turned at the same time, looking at someone coming out of the pub. Lucky enough, I wasn't the one those stares were directed at, or else I would have been shitting my pants in fear. The one coming out was that old dude. Apparently, he still hadn't given up. Honestly, how in the world could one man be that thirsty and desperate? I wasn't good looking, nor especially slutty or in any other way attention grabbing. But, well, there he was. And in front of him, 5 guys that slowly moved to form a half circle around him, like a group of sharks around their prey. I fought every urge to run and hide, but that was all I could do. "Still not letting it go, old man?" P7 spoke up. They didn't expect an answer and didn't get one, but they still closed their circle. "You better remember this, hands of my friend. Listen, old man, that boy over there is off limits. If we see you go near him again, you are dead. You mess with him, you mess with us. Yeah, he's one of us." All of them spoke, one after another, making their intentions clear and completely stunning me in surprised confusion and disbelief. I was one of them? No, definitely not. They just said that to scare the shit out of that old man. Like a group of young predators, they needed something to play with, and that old man just happened to be there. I'm sure they didn't mean it. Or did they? Again, I stared at them in confusion. Did they mean it or not? What was happening? I really hadn't the slightest idea, and before I could answer any of my curiosities, a voice behind me called out my name. "You, get in the car." P. Mini was standing in front of the pub, getting honked at for blocking the road, so I held on to my stuff, quickly getting in the car. The next day, I was really absent-minded, thinking about what happened last night. Not so much that old man, but rather that group of predators proclaiming a total loser like me was one of them. It really bothered me for some reason. If it was true, I suddenly was one of the cool kids, right? If not, then why say something like that? I really just couldn't make heads or tails of it. So, after getting scolded multiple times by my teacher and my seniors for not paying attention, I could only let it go. Tomorrow would be Friday, and maybe then I would get an answer. This Friday, nothing was much different, at least in the beginning. Classes, dinner, and off to the club where I would meet up with the bikers and get them inside. But things started to change after the gig was finished. Those 5 bikers started to look out for me, making sure that always one of them was close to me at all times. At first, I didn't even realize it, but over time it became more obvious. Even Peepar asked me about it. "You, since you're getting closer to those bikers, I'll go enjoy myself tonight. Or are they making trouble for you?" Shaking my head, I laughed. "Go ahead, P. Enjoy your evening. I'm sure I'll be fine." With that, I gave him a soft push towards a group of girls that had been trying to get his attention all night. The rest of the night was a mix of drinks, having fun, and actually being treated like I was one of the gang. Not that my status changed much, I was still weak and easy to push around, but I had 5 more people that looked out for me, and I actually was included when they made a toast, resulting in me getting really drunk during that night. The sun was already coming up when finally they decided to leave, and without leaving room for protest, I was dragged along. To be honest, I didn't have any complaints anyway. P-Par scored with some girl, so I couldn't stay over at his place, and P-Mini was a girl, making it inappropriate for me to stay at her place. The next day was a Saturday, and I was free to do what I wanted for once, so I had no complaints staying up until morning, and then getting dragged along by those guys to find some drunk food/breakfast. What I didn't expect was that I'd be taken back to P. Tom's house by them to sleep over. P. Tom was the other member of the gang that came from a different school. His parents were always out of town, so they used the place as their headquarters, always sleeping over when they were out all night or too drunk to go home. The next day, I woke up with 3 half-naked guys in the bed with me. Back then, my first thought was every girl would love to be me right now. But other than that, I didn't really have any interest in the situation, other than the queasy feeling in my tummy, and the wish for some kanji. If you ask me again today, I would definitely react differently to the same scene. But back then, I was just not interested in anyone, or anything that went in that direction. So I made my way out of the bed after finding my glasses to go down to the kitchen. Smiling, I greeted P-Win and sat at the table, taking the bowl of kanji he offered me. Did you get up early to make food? I asked in confusion, wondering how he could be up this early after being out all night. It was only early noon and we definitely didn't sleep for more than 6 hours. But he looked all nice and fresh. Yeah, I can't really sleep when I'm drunk, so I'm always the first to get up, making breakfast, he explained with a soft laugh, ruffling my hair, as I lowered my head over the bowl to eat. I didn't mind. I only hummed in appreciation before returning to eat. Soon after, one after another, the other guys came down to eat. Time-wise it was lunch, but from the feeling it was breakfast, so I'll call it breakfast. The breakfast went by rather quietly, with only someone talking here and there. Not much, just throwing a few ideas out for what to do today. Since I didn't really know what was going to happen next, and I wasn't used to situations like this, I stayed quiet until I was spoken to. You joining us, right? Since you're free anyway? And with that, it was decided I would tag along with them. They didn't even give me time to nod my head before they started bouncing ideas around. Since the boy's tagging along, how about we go for a drive? Nah, let's go shopping. You're always such a girl, Win. Always wanting to go shopping. Hey, how about we go play some games? Again? Games? 7, really? We can play games when we don't have this little guy around to play with. You make it sound like he's some puppy, Tom. Why don't we take him to the park then and let him play with the other puppies? They do know I'm right here, right? I asked myself quietly before looking up. They opened a new virtual reality gaming center in the mall. If you want to go gaming and shopping, you can do both there. I mumbled, not really wanting to say anything, but also wanting to go there since I always imagined that would be what friends did together on a weekend. Not that I knew, since, until now, all I did with my friends was study or play music for school or club activities. It didn't even take them 5 minutes to decide that the gaming center was the place to go, after P-Win, who was right next to me, translated my mumbling for them. And with that, another fight broke out. Who was going to be the first to go shower since there were only 2 bathrooms in the house and 6 guys? I was fine going last as long as they stopped wanting to bathe me like a dog. Managing to escape my fate of being the new puppy of the group, I finally found the time for a shower after they all finished. When I got out, someone placed a new towel and some new clothes for me on the bathroom counter. The clothes were a little too big since they probably belonged to one of the other boys, but I was thankful nonetheless. The clothes I wore yesterday were smelly, and normally I had a few sets of changing clothes at Peepar's place, but since I didn't stay there last night, I didn't have anything to wear. Thankful, I put on the jeans and shirt, tightening the jeans and folding up the legs. With the boots I was always wearing for playing drums, it looked intentional, and even actually really good. Military print shirt tucked into black jeans that rolled up with ankle-high boots. If now I had the confidence to wear an outfit like that and not glasses, I would actually look like I fit in with the bikers. I stood in front of the house with the others, waiting for P-Win since he was the one driving me around. He and the leader were still inside talking about something. When they came out, P-Win walked past, and when I wanted to follow, I was stopped by a hand on my shoulder, and without a word, the leader put a pair of dog tags around my neck, walking to his bike. Wow! Now you're really looking the part, you. All you need to find now is your confidence, P7 teased me before getting on his bike. The rest of the day flew by really quickly. First, gaming and having fun in virtual reality, then getting lunch, finally, following P-Win's whining, to go shopping and other things. For the first time, I actually experienced what it was like to have a normal day out with friends. No classes, no responsibilities, no nothing. Just having fun, eating food, and enjoying the day. Riding around the city on the back of a bike, I was still scared, but I finally started to get used to it. At least enough that I didn't close my eyes the whole time praying. In the evening, they let P-Win take me home since I was still a responsible high school student and my parents expected me. But after that, things changed. The next week, I still spent time with my music classes, but now when I was finished, there were 5 bikes waiting outside to take me with them to have fun before I had to go back. Once in a while, I even told my mom I was sleeping over at a friend's for a school project to spend the night at P. Tom's house, playing games or go out to party all night. I changed. I was still insecure and fearful and hopeless, but I finally started to realize that I didn't have to be this way, starting to learn that I could change. Of course, a person doesn't change a lot in just a week, let's be honest here. But I was starting to see a new me. That somewhere, the future was waiting for me if I was willing to take the risk. And that new me I saw back then is who I am today, with a few differences. But that time I spent with those bikers really shaped me in a positive way to who I am today. I experienced so many new things in just 1 week. And back then, I was sure it would keep going on like this until Friday. Today, I was getting ready for the gig when the boys told me that I wouldn't need to get them inside tonight. Instead, they would pick me up right after because they had somewhere they wanted to take me. I agreed, not thinking much about it since they always were like this, telling me they would pick me up and not telling me where they would take me. So I played the gig and after told Peepar that I would go out with my friends and that I wouldn't stay over, getting my stuff and leaving the pub to see 5 familiar guys waiting for me. The rest of the night I can split in 2 parts. I can tell you both are equally burned into my memory as unforgettable. The first part is the surprise they had for me. Since they were still part of a biker gang, they also took part in illegal street racing. And tonight was one of the biggest racing parties. The gang would gather around, they would accept any challenger that wanted to race them, and throw a big party. That night, I was high on dopamine and alcohol. I didn't do drugs back then. I still don't. Alcohol is the only drug I let into my body. But I still felt high. It was the rush of it all. Watching the guys race on their bikes, the music, the strong bass that played out over the big portable speaker, the people that were definitely not the kind of company your parents want you to have, but they were the kind that knew how to have fun. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I could let go and just enjoy. The energy of that place took me away, made me feel like I never wanted this to stop. I was definitely getting drunk, but it only intensified the feeling. I was free. I didn't constantly worry or look around to see how people reacted to me. I was just me, talking with people, having fun. And I never once was scared because even though I let go, I always had someone looking over me and making sure I was okay. When the sun started to come up, the party started to break apart, splitting into groups as they made their way to whatever their destination was. I was standing with P. Janon, second in looks at our school and last of the bikers, waiting for the leader and the rest of the group, still feeling drunk and high. Without much thought, I grabbed the helmet I was handed, wanting to walk over to P. Win's bike when I was interrupted. "You're riding with me tonight," a voice said. His voice was just as attractive as he was. Low, pleasing, and though sounding cold, deep down, you could hear a soft warmth. Or maybe I was just that drunk, making his voice sound that amazing to me. Smiling, I walked over, sitting on the back of the leader's bike as ordered, waiting for the group to get moving. This ride was different. I told you I finally got used to riding on a bike, especially after having rode on them for the whole previous week. By now, I even enjoyed it. But still, his bike was the sexiest bike I had ever seen. And riding on it, damn, it was just amazing. I felt every purring of the motor, every movement when he made a turn. The wind was blowing against me, the speed getting to my head. I felt my body start to tingle all over. My skin was heating up. Even back then, I wasn't that innocent. I knew what it meant. I was getting turned on by riding his bike, by feeling the energy under me, the power, the little movement it needed to be controlled, the soft purring of the motor. It all mixed with the floaty feeling I still had from before, making me feel all hot and bothered. With my arms stretched out wide, I let the wind rip a moan scream from my lips. And then it happened. The moment I would never forget. The moment only lasted a few seconds, but those seconds were burned into my brain like it happened in slow motion. I can still, to this day, remember everything. We were coming up on a curve. My head was spinning with excitement, and I had my arms stretched out far, screaming into the wind. I was moving around, leaning to one side, just when he leaned the bike into the curve towards the other side, making him lose control. He had to correct his steering against the curve to keep me from falling down, forcing him into oncoming traffic. A big truck was rushing towards us, the horns blasting, and he only had seconds to make a decision. Leaning the bike to the side as far as he could, he pulled the bike around, opening a second window for him to grab me and roll to the side, sacrificing his bike to save my life. That moment, that second, he had given up the one thing most precious to him to save my life. And the whole thing was my fault. That was a debt I would never be able to repay. A debt that, until now, I'm still carrying on my shoulders. The debt that made me his servant. P0! Screaming his name, I woke up in the hospital the day after. I'd fainted right at the crash site from pain and only now woke up. Hearing my scream, everyone started to gather around my bed. Lucky for me, my parents were in the room, but outside talking to the doctor, so they didn't hear me wake up screaming that name. It would have been too embarrassing. The rest of the boys, though, heard it right away, teasing me. "Oh, now you finally showing him respect?" P. Win was the first to laugh. "Damn, I wish I had someone wake up screaming my name like that." P. Janan joined the teasing. I did my best to ignore them, looking over to the other bed in the room where P0 was lying. He seemed to be asleep, and the others told me that he refused to get treated until I was taken care of, saying it was his responsibility and his driving that got me in the situation. Only after the doctors assured him I was okay did he finally get himself checked out, and now was sleeping in the bed next to mine. Both our wounds weren't that bad. Mine were only scratches and burns from pulling over the asphalt and a broken rib. P0 had taken most of the damage. Trying to protect me, his leg was broken, his skin was scratched like mine, and he had 2 broken ribs and a damaged tendon in his wrist. Luckily enough, we both wore helmets and thick jackets, or else it would have been worse, the doctor told me later. Soon after I woke up, my parents came into the room. It only took them a few minutes to go from concern about my health to scolding me for being reckless. From what they said, the boys never told anyone that it was my fault that P0 lost his balance, but instead he took all the blame, saying that he got distracted and that it was an accident. My parents still thought it was my fault for getting on that bike, and, well, guess what? After that, I was grounded for the rest of the semester. But, well, I was okay with it, since it would take weeks for me to heal, and by then, the semester would be over anyways. And to be honest, I think my mom knew that. That's one of the first things I love about her the most. She was worried about her kids, and she was the first to raise hell to protect them, but she was never unreasonable. She had seen the changes I had gone through in the last week, and she realized why I changed too. Even though she was worried because I got hurt, she knew that it was an accident, and that these boys were probably the reason I actually started to show something like confidence now and then. So she did punish me to remind me to be careful, but the punishment wasn't out of proportion. After that, I spent the last week of my semester break in the hospital with those guys hanging around all day, bringing games, snacks, and what else to entertain me and P0. It wasn't until the day before we would get released when the topic of that night was brought up again. With a really serious face, suddenly Pete Tom got up, standing by the door as if to make sure no one would enter. P. Win got up, standing on the end of my bed, while P. Janan stood close to the wall, and P7 close to the window. Right away, I realized they were boxing me in, giving me no way to escape, no place to run. Worried and scared, I looked up. What's going on? That's when P0 started to speak. "We all know what happened that night. How will you repay your debt?" Breathing out, I finally got what this was all about, all fear leaving me, since even since I woke up, I was ready to pay any price. "I don't know if I can ever repay you, even if I give my life to you. It might not be enough," I answered, trying my best to sit up straight and with contempt, without kneeling on the bed since I was still in too much pain for that. "I accept your life as repayment from now on. Until I see your debt is paid, you will be my servant." P0 spoke in a really serious and a little festive voice. I looked up in confusion, finally seeing that the others did their best to hold back their laughter. "Damn you! I lost money 'cause of you. I really thought it would take you longer than that to agree on being his servant," P7 whined, looking disappointed as he handed money over to P. Win. Damn, they had been teasing me again, and I walked right into it. But now there was no way back. I was this guy's servant until he said otherwise. But to be honest, I wasn't mad about it. Now you know why I am this man's servant. Long story, right? Was it what you were expected when I started telling it? Well, before we finish here, let me catch you up on the rest, up to the point 1.5 years later, the day we started. After getting released from the hospital, I was on bed rest and missed the start of the semester. The first week, every day after school, the bikers would come over to my place to scrounge food off my mom and to bring me some entertainment. After, they would pack up all the snacks and food my mom would give them to go over to P0's house. After a few weeks, I was finally cleared to go back to school at least and finish the semester. After that, those bikers had their graduation ceremony. Lucky enough, I got my mom's permission to go, and they were off to university. But honestly, that made things only more difficult for me. The second I was healed up and not grounded anymore, P0 started to utilize me to the fullest. Since not all of the gang went to the same university, I only saw them now and then as P0 started to make new friends. I got to know them during my many errand runs I had to do after school. I still played drums, so I had to bring them into the pub every Friday. I also started to change. During my last year in high school, I got confident. I started working out, finally got rid of my acne, and I grew the last centimeters I hoped for, finally making me reach 176 centimeters in total. Still not that tall, but I wasn't small anymore either. I got pumped up, I got muscles, and started dressing the part more and more. I even got recognition from some of the kids in school after I finally, nearly at the end of my school life, stood up to my bullies. That last year of high school might have been the busiest I ever had. I always had a full plate with school, music club, and music academy, but after I became P0's servant, I really started to realize what the phrase, "too busy to eat," meant. In his first year, P0 entered the Campus Moon competition, founded a bike club, and became head of his year's first semesters for his faculty. Consequently, I was the servant for all these jobs, doing half of his workload wherever I could actually help. Aside from that, I had to attend all of the university events to carry around his stuff. I was lucky he cared about my grades, since the university he was attending was prestigious enough to not let everyone attend. P0 was dead set on getting me into the same university, so if I told him that I had exams or other school activities that would give me more points, he would always give me the space to study and perform well. But every second I wasn't busy with school or studying, I was running errands for him, or following him around with big bags on my shoulders. Once a bully, always a bully. But, well, I had chosen this fate for me, and I was ready to bear it with everything that came with it. From less sleep to regular hardcore workouts, since P0 had to maintain his perfect muscles and didn't want to work out alone, to martial arts classes. I did everything without whining or complaining. And finally, I got a reward after my graduation and my acceptance letter for the university. P0 gave me the rest of my break to do what I want until the start of my first and his second semester. I took the time to actually get ready for university. I finally got my skin taken care of and removed my acne scars. I got rid of my glasses and got fitted contacts. Now, the only chance anyone would have to see me with those glasses was if I wanted them to. Lastly, I got a dorm room and moved out of my parents' house. And with that, my first semester at university began. But that is a story for another day.
Hey guys, thank you so much for listening to chapter 1 and 2 of Ride With Me. Please check out the narrator. I will link all his social medias down below. He's really amazing and he did a really amazing job. Please leave a like if you enjoyed the story. Please check out the original story, which will also be linked down below. And please comment if you have anything to say about the story. If you're interested in other stories like this, please subscribe and let me know so I can look into turning some of my other stories into an audiobook. Other than that, once more, thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed the story.